This conference will now be recorded.
I can't see a screen.
So we'll go ahead with the next application. That is our Spring Boot form-based integration. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Spring Boot security. Did you try Spring Boot security with forms?
With authentication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm telling you that is not going through. I don't know. My project structure is only wrong. I tried deleting, I tried re-importing, but still the same. It is view is happening again. It's showing me records, but I don't know why the login pop-up is not coming. It is directly taking me. The whole point of the application is to, show us pop-up. We have to log in.
Mm. Let's download it and let me check it out once. Okay. Mm. So Hibernate we didn't discuss, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No.
Mm. You have downloaded the project in your system, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same, the second project which I've,
Yeah.
it's not running, you're saying?
No.
Jyoti, let it be. It will take some time for the processing. In the meanwhile,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what is Hibernate, and we will start up with the applications. See, Hibernate is an ORM tool. What is Hibernate? ORM tool. ORM. ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping Tool. ORM stands for Object Relational Mapping.
Okay.
Are you getting me?
Mhm.
Object Relational Mapping Tool. And here, you're going to create a Java application and the Java application objects. Suppose I have created a student class. The student object, I would like to store it to database. The database may be
Student object or student object which contains data?
student object only.
Okay.
Student object. That object, I would like to store it to database. Okay, when I say student object, I mean, I'm going to create an object, but I need to give a values for that. These values, including the object with the values, we are going to send it to database. So previously, what we used to do is, if I have a JDBC, I must and should have to compulsory write queries. But here, we are not going to write the queries. We are going to map it. Of course, some simple queries we are going to write it, but still, we are going to provide some mapping system. We are going to provide some mapping system.
Okay.
That is what we are going to see. That is your object relational mapping tool. Hibernate is used as a mapping tool. See, Hibernate is not an API, it's a framework. API means only one set of jar file. But when you say framework, it's a couple of APIs. So framework is nothing but it's a predefined methodology, a predefined logic. See, when you are working with any mathematical things, if you have a, what do you say? If you have a formula, that will be easy to work. That is easy to complete the task. In the same way, Hibernate gives you some predefined methodologies so that you can work it. So any predefined methodology, we call it as a framework. That means it has its own way of interaction. That means it has its own configuration. That configuration can be XML file. That configuration can be annotations. So when you are working with the Spring, we have a Spring is a framework. That's the reason we have a Spring a configuration for configuring the beans. We have separate XML file, and even for MVC we have Spring-servlet.xml file. In the same way, Hibernate also needs some XML file. Your Java objects. In terms of Hibernate, we call them as persistent objects.
Excuse. Hello.
Jyoti, can you hear me?
Yes.
So, to to work with the database, I'm going to use something else other than JP, other than my JDBC. I'm going to use some tool, so that which makes me
Okay.
the communication easy, which makes me the communication with the easy with the database. For that reason, we are going to use ORM tool. We have many ORM tools, not only a Hibernate, we have some other ORM tools. So the other ORM tools are, you can top link, note down that top link is one of the ORM tool, and JPA is also one of the ORM tool. On top of the JPA, your Hibernate is there again. So Hibernate, IBAT is top link, Hibernate, JPA. All these are all ORM tools. But on top of the JPA, we have Hibernate. So it's like a Spring, and on top of Spring, we have Spring Boot. In the same way, on top of us, JPA, we have a Hibernate framework. Make sense?
Yeah.
So what is this Hibernate does for us? What is or how it is effective? So it is open source and lightweight. Anyone can. We don't need to purchase it. So we just have to download the supporting jar files. Otherwise, if it is a Maven, we are going to use the dependencies. If it is a Maven, we are going to use the dependencies. That's it. So database independent query. I told you that your database can be anything. Your database can be anything. Your Hibernate allows you to work or you can connect with any technology very easily. That's what Hibernate says. Are you getting me, Jyoti? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and what else it does? You don't need to create the table also. The tables also automatically created. Hibernate creates automatic tables also.
Okay. I might want to see an example. Yeah, let's go ahead.
I'm sorry?
I mean, I quite didn't understand if we are trying to put some information in the database, then we are supposed to just give data from here, and the arranging, creating tables and all stuff, that is SQL part. So tables will be created in Java itself.
That's what. Tables, you don't need to create. Tables also will create automatically. How does it create? We'll see. And you don't need to write queries also in some cases. Automatic queries also will be displayed. That too, according to my database. So what is the advantage of Hibernate? Your database can be anything.
Oh yeah, Oracle, MySQL.
So yeah, the queries it generates automatically. With the queries it generates automatically. So how does it generate the queries? So for that, if you are using Oracle, you are going to use a Oracle related dialect. What we call Oracle related dialect. And if it is MySQL, I have to use MySQL related dialect. If it is IBM SQL, I have to use IBM SQL dialect. That means there is a specific server, we have a specific dialect. We call it as dialect. Are you getting me?
Okay.
So for each server, we have different Are you getting me, okay? Joins, it simplifies. Okay, so there are many things we have. Hibernate architecture. You are going to create an application. Suppose student is my class. And for my student class, I'm going to generate an object. That object in terms of Hibernate. We call it as persistent object. What we call? Persistent object. Are you getting me, Jyoti?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The object we call it as persistent object. That persistent object. In general, JDBC we call it as POJ object, but in general here we call it as persistent object. But in terms of Spring, we call it as bean. What do we call? Bean. In terms of Hibernate, it is. In terms of Hibernate, it is.
But bean is a class.
Bean is a class. Yes, it's so a reusable
Pojo,
component.
yeah, Pojo kind of class. But here it is, yeah, and here it is an object.
Oh, for the class only, we will be creating objects, no, Jyoti.
No,
We'll be creating class
but there
only.
is in the
Huh?
diagram there is only in the diagram we can see there is only one persistent object. So I thought directly creating object you can access.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You will be calling a class, but here we'll be calling it as persistent class. Let it be persistent class. That persistent class or persistent object, we are going to store it to database. To store it to the database, I'm going to use two things. I'm going to use
Okay.
Hibernate. To store your Java object to the database, I'm going to use the mediator, that is Hibernate. What is Hibernate? Hibernate majorly about two files. One is it is going to map this object to the database, and another is, as it is a framework, it has its own configuration also. Two things. When you are working with any framework, it will be having the task to do, and apart from that, it has its own configuration. That means from where to where it has to go. That information is going to maintain. Make sense, Jyoti? Hello, Jyoti, you're getting me right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, fine. So now, okay, we can store it to the database directly. How come it will goes? As part of that, here the story starts. Persistent object is ready. That means your Java object, student, employee, account, any object.
Okay.
That object I have to take it to the database. That is my Hibernate comes over here. Hibernate but internally what happens? Internally there are some components. What it has? Some components. They are important components. 5 important components: session factory, transaction factory, connection provider, session, transaction. So these are all the 5 components as part of your Hibernate framework. Apart from that, it uses a JDBC API also. What does it use? JDBC, Java naming directory data source information. Your data source information it has to maintain. Java transactions API to perform transactions. So that means internally it uses 3 APIs. It's a tool, it's a framework to store the objects to the database, but internally it has a dependency on some other APIs also. So what are the APIs it has is JDBC, JTA, and JNDI. Make sense, Jyoti?
Okay.
It uses internally this database depend APIs, but they'll not highlight this one. But here we are getting that internally your objects. Okay, so Hibernate has some process to do. It might be any database. So you said any database you can connect it, but JDBC we have to say we cannot do JDBC. We have to write queries and all. No, that part will be done over here itself.
Automatically, yeah.
That part will be done over here itself, and then your JDBC will come into picture over here, and then database connectivity will happen. Make sense?
Yeah.
That is the thing. So we'll be discussing session factory, session, transaction, connection provider, transaction factory. 5 important components, very important. Session factory is basically like in the XML we have XML bean factory. Here we have session factory. Sir, what is session?
Okay.
Session is nothing but an action what you perform. Suppose I have an object, Java object, student object. until I store, I have to store, and that means I'm going to save that object. So when the object has been saved, my task has been completed. That's my session. Session means basically an action to be implemented. Once the action has been done, that session, I don't need it. I've created an object. This object, I need to store it to the database. To store it, I need a session object, because Java is a Hibernate, Java is a object-oriented technology. That's the reason we need a session object. So with the help of this session object, I'm going to store it. So then what is this session factory? Session factory is collection of sessions. I have one session object is to store, another session object is to delete, another session object is to modify. Maybe different operations I'll perform. Are you getting me?
Mm-hmm.
In that case, I need, if I want to get different sessions, I need database connectivity. So this database connectivity information will be held with the person session factory. He is the he's a person who provides us the database connectivity, database information. Once if I have additional database information, then only I can create my session object. That means your session has a dependency on session factory. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And once I have done, the session object is ready. So how you perform statement? Statement object is to create a statement, your query and all. In the same way, you need to perform transaction. After getting session, what is the use of session? On the session object, I'm going to perform transaction. So your transaction object is responsible to take to perform transactions. And once that's been done, so that's it. Transaction factory, we don't need them. So transaction, you'll be doing them. Doing that. If you see an example, you'll be getting to know what's happening.
Okay.
Create the persistent class. That means your Pojo class.
Yeah.
If I create an object, that is persistent object. First now, I'm going to create a class. Done. Once the class has been created, I'm going to map this class to database. I'm not creating any table. I'm going to create one file to map what my persistent class to map to the database. For that reason, I need mapping file, and I need another XML file that is configuring your Hibernate configuration file for your XML. Okay, so configuration file for this thing, configuration file, mapping file, and another is one main class, because we are not using web applications as of now. So we need a main class. Now I have created an employee. This is called my persistent class, which contains the ID, first name, last name. And I've created my persistent class. Then I need next what? Mapping file. That file we call it as Hibernate mapping.xml file. Any name you can give, but hvm.xml file generally will give it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a table. I said to you that, sir, we don't need to create no table. So why you're talking about table again?
Okay.
Here, table with what name for this class? This is my class, employee class. For this class, I need to create a table. So the table name, if you want to keep it same, leave it. If you want to keep it a different one, then you have to maintain a table name in the mapping file itself. Are you getting me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That table is kind of you meant for every operation I perform in one cycle of program. I mean, one run.
Table?
How to say? Suppose if I have a Java program, okay, maybe I need to see one program, then I'll ask.
Okay.
Let me
So
finish one complete thing, then I'll
for
ask.
the okay, Jyoti. For the existing Pojo class, for the existing persistent class, I want to create a table, and this is my table name. You can give any name. Okay, if you don't give, it will take your class name as a table name. That's it. Fine. And I have in this class three fields: ID, name, first name, last name. Right?
Last,
For these three
yeah.
fields, I need to create a table. Table name is
Okay.
employee 1000. And in that one keyword, I want to make it as a primary key. That is ID. ID, I want to make it as a primary key. If you want to make it anything as a primary key, what you have to do is you have to say that as a, you have to declare it as an ID. The remaining things I have declared it as a property because we don't need to set it as a primary key. So if you don't want to set them as a primary key, then you have to set it as a property. First name and last name, I've set them as a properties. But my ID, it might be EID or anything, but my EID, I've set it as ID. So that means it will understand that you are going to set it as a primary key. So there is something called a generator. This we'll be discussing later on. So the purpose of this is we don't need to give ID values. We have to give first name and last name only. We don't need to give ID values. It will also assign automatically. That is also there. Table will be created automatically.
Yeah, kind of auto increment.
It will be incremented. So now our configuration, our XML configuration. Sir, what does it have? We have already mapping file. Then what is this additionally? So as I told you, we need one object, that is main object session factory. So we are
This
going
is
to
XML itself, right?
I'm sorry.
The session factory is in XML itself, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is separate XML file. That was separate XML file, and this is separate XML file.
Okay.
Here we have Hibernate configuration and session factory. And in the session factory, we are writing what URL, username, password, database. What is the database you are using?
Basically, we give all of a database connection in the XML.
That's it. And apart from that, Jyoti, we are going to give something I said to you, dialect. So this is responsible to create my queries also. So this dialect, if I am using Oracle 9, I have to use Oracle 9 dialect. If I'm using Oracle 11, I need to find out Oracle 11 dialect, and I have to configure. Okay, if you are using MySQL, you need to find out MySQL dialect. You'll get it in the Google dialects. Okay, dialect for Hibernate for MySQL. Then you'll get org dot something like this. So that you need to copy and paste it over here. Now, what I'm saying is create or update. I have to write here create or update. So HPM 2DDL.auto Hibernate mapping to data definition language. DDL stands for data definition language. So create a table if the table is not there. Define. So we are saying it or update it if it is already there. Update the table. That's what we are saying. So now what we are doing is we are saying update, but instead of that, better to say create because it's the first time we are working.
HPM2DDL is a new table.
I'm sorry, Jyoti?
The HPM2DDL, is it new table?
This is not a table, Jyoti. So this is responsible to create the tables, and this is the dialect which is responsible to generate the queries based on the server.
How did I get the property name then?
Which one?
The HPM2DDL.auto. How did I get the name?
No, you don't need to get it. This is common for anything. The same property you'll be having. But the dialect value, this is the value. You are giving the value. This is dialect value for MySQL. You have to search it. Are you getting me? This is my property name. And what am I doing is create or update. This is fixed. Create or update, delete what you want to perform. Generally, we'll say create. First time we are saying. So when you are saying next time, you don't want to create every time the new table. Then you have to say update. So it can be update also. That's not. So that's it. And this connection things and this mapping things and this dialect to whom it has to be available, to the file called employee hbm.xml file. In the employee.hbm.xml file, what I have my table information. Okay, I have my properties, my table information. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. The configuration file is ready. Then now you have to go for main method. So here what you are going to do is you are going to read your Hibernate config.xml. So as part of this Hibernate config.xml, we have we are going to get it from standard service registry. This will get me my configuration file, and once if I got the configuration file, I'm using metadata. That means I want to read the data. So for that reason, we are going to use metadata. So after that, what I'm going to do is, after reading the data, I want session factory. If I get the session factory, then only I can get the session objects. Same like your JDBC. You have JDBC. You have one by one connectivity. In the same way, we have other things like session factory, and then session,
Then
and then
transaction.
so these two lines over. The first line is to get the XML file. The second line is to read the file. The third line is to start your programming, get the objects, session factory objects. And once if you got the session factory object, you can create your session. You are opening your session. And now I'm saying begin transaction. Now what is my transaction? I'm going to save an object. I have created employee object manually. I'm setting the values manually over here. But if you have a form, that's a different story. And after creating these objects manually, what I'm doing is session dot save of this E1. On the session, I have a methods save, update, delete. So I can call those
Oh
methods
my
and
God.
directly I can perform it.
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah.
Are you getting me, Jyoti? And then we can directly perform it. Now, what
Yeah.
is the thing? You are supposed to download this file. Nothing, we are not going to do anything. So, but the thing is, hope you have MySQL, right? You have MySQL, no?
Yeah. Yeah. My voice is coming late. I don't know why.
Acha, acha. You're calling me, you're talking from US, Najati, that's right. Huh?
I don't know. Today it's kind of slow.
Network issue.
Maybe.
So what the thing is, Jyoti, here you have to give all the things, update till here it is okay. But here you have to search for MySQL dialect. I'll show you.
Yeah.
Google. Come. Or Hibernate. Copy this.
Okay.
Copy this. I think this guy will also give dialects also. Somewhere I have seen one moment. Web application, dialects, yeah, here.
Oh, okay.
Which one you have?
It's your MySQL.
So MySQL,
Yeah.
if it is general one, it is okay. Otherwise, InnoDB. Okay. So there is some other dialect. Basically, we have to use this. If it doesn't work, use this InnoDB. Okay. InnoDB dialect. So that is your dialect. And HBM2DDL.auto is same. And you have to give your dialect. And then your connection URL. What is the MySQL URL? What is the username? And what is the password? And what is the driver class name? You have to pass it. And everything is same. That's it. And you don't need to create any table. So download the project and just you need to do those changes. And the thing is, MySQL connector.jar file, you have to configure your build path. Remember this. Okay. So it will create, but it has a dependency on JDBC. I told you. So that's the reason you have to use MySQL connector.jar file. Are you getting me, Jyoti? Hello.
That should. I actually have this problem. Sometimes when I do build path, I go to build path and add my jar files, it doesn't work. But if I copy paste jar files into the webinf lib folder, then it suddenly starts working.
Okay. So that means it is not able to find it. accepting it. It's getting some other version related. So that is not your problem. That is version problem. What you have to do is configure your build path with the MySQL connector.jar to work with this project. Okay. Now do this application and please let me know. I'll connect with you again back in another 10 minutes. Do this one and we'll continue with the Spring security.
Okay.
Back in 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure.